Hey, welcome to another episode of Geeks from the Multiverse. We got a great episode. We're going to be talking about Todd McFarlane's Spawn. That's right. We're going to be going through all the different characters, breaking down the character of Spawn and the 90s animated show as well as the movie. So let's get geeky. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Geeks from the Multiverse. I am one of your hosts, Matt, and with me, as always, is
Johnny Boy. What's up, y'all? How you doing? Now, anyways, we're going to get down to it. I know Matt's got some exciting news for you, so kick it, Matt.
So before we get to my news, I just want to thank you guys who are listening to us on YouTube. Don't forget to give us those likes and subscribe to our channels. Make sure you get all of our weekly content, and I will throw this out there. If you would like to see us do anything on YouTube, reach out to us. We are looking for ideas for content on that channel to do something on our YouTube. So if you have an idea, reach out, give us that idea, and we'll look into doing it. I mean, that's all I can say, John, right? Like, we're looking for ideas for anything to do on our channel. So if you have an idea, just give us a shout out, send us an email, send us a Facebook, whatever you need to do.
I mean, Jeff, you haven't hollered at us a little bit. I was actually kind of worried, buddy. So if you want to, reach out again, maybe give us some other ideas. That'd be great.
You guys can send like smoke signals or something. I mean, we'll see them.
Shit, you could throw a pile of shit in the middle of my yard and be like, oh, yeah, look, it's the dog. Nope, it's actually somebody sending me a note or something. I don't know.
I can put some crap in your yard.
I would rather you not, man. I get enough dog shit with my dog already. So, but anyway.
All right, I got one more. I do want to talk about my book because my book, The Amulet Keeper's Power of the Gods, officially does come out on August 1st, which is Thursday. And there will be a print version and an ebook format that will be available both on August 1st.
Yes. And actually, so good old Matt here was like, hey, the other day we were hanging out and of course, we had our wives with us and we're just kind of chilling. He's like, oh, hey, I got you something. And I was like, what's this? He's like, oh, I got you a copy of my book. He's like, I was like, okay. I said, yeah, you better read it. He's like, you son of a bitch. It's like, because guess what? It's my fucking book. And I'm like, all right, calm your fucking titties. All right. It is what it is. I got you.
You have the first official version of this book.
I do. I do have the first official version. And better yet, I have an actual signed copy of the actual book because Matt here was like, I got to sign it. And then what I thought was hilarious was your wife was like, are you really signing his book? And you're like, yeah, of course I'm fucking signing his book.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, it'll be worth an extra 10 cents if you try to resell. But
I mean, later on, sure, but who knows?
Who knows? But yes. So August 1st on Thursday, my book will go on sale, which is very, very exciting. But for me, it's also very nerve-wracking because I have like any type of creator, you have no idea, like when you create content, if people are going to enjoy it or if they're just going to be like, oh, this is a pile of shit. Right, like so that's.
Well, yeah. I mean, you're really playing with fire right now. It's like, well, think about it. When we first started this podcast, man. I mean, I'm not saying we're the fucking well-known fucking podcast of the world here, but I would hope that maybe at some point, yes, we could reach a bigger audience, and that's why hopefully, like, and with YouTube and stuff, that will give us that chance. But yeah, I mean, who knows with this book? And I've already told you, man, like. We'll see where this is going to go because, guys, I'm going to tell you, if you read this book and, you tell others and if you guys like it and do all of this, it really just helps us as a whole in this podcast because, oh, God, I'm sorry. A demon came out of me, which is ironic because we're going to be talking about Spawn here. But
yeah, be careful there.
The biggest thing, though, is, when we talk about like all these things and like these different ideas and, of course, with him in his book, we're doing it now because now we're trying to drive our podcast and our hopefully potential business down the road because, we need you guys to,
we're trying to help us out. Yeah, we're trying to expand. At least, we are trying to expand the reach, and that's kind of what this book is really doing. And, this concept, and it's not the first book that'll come out. I do have 2 more in process. I'm already, kind of on chapter 3. Of the second book. So the second book is already in writing right now. But like I said, Thursday, this one comes out, and I will be sharing out a special link. It's kind of like our link tree, but this one will connect you to all the different sites where the book is actually listed on. So, your Barnes and Nobles, your Apple Books, your Amazon. So the website is actually, it's books to read, and it's books, the number 2, read.com/GFTM23.
Oof, man, I was going to do like, don't be screwing it up like we did back in the day here. I don't want to be doing that again.
Yeah, it's books to read. So then it's the number 2. So books2read.com/GFTM23. That's the link. I'm going to be sharing that one out. And like I said, it will be available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Apple Books. It's going to be international.
So, international.
I believe it's Rakuten Kobo, which is kind of like it's available in like Canada and Italy and Germany and like all over the world. So
what I'm hearing is, man, is that if I ever
all over the place.
So you know what? This is just a future goal of mine. So maybe one day if I can get a chance to go overseas again, it's been a long time for me, but if I can ever find a way to go overseas and be like, hey, let's see if I can find his book somewhere. I'm not kidding. If your book is seriously somewhere, I'm going to send you a photo and be like, hey, it's in Italy. Oh, hey, it's here.
It'll be on one of those shelves in a grocery store.
Or it'll probably be in that fucking, what the hell do they call it? Like, like bodegas or something like that. Like a giant fair.
It'll be in the 50 cent
pile bin in like a
aisle bin in like a fair.
It's like the nun's store. It's like it's that weird place that you don't really want to go into, but you're like, oh, there it is. There's Matt's book.
No, but seriously, I am very, very excited. And if you do know me personally, I would just personally ask, like, if you see me doing a post on the book, just help me share it out, help me get the word out, because it is a big deal for me.
No, and I've told you, man. I mean, it's you're. When I tell you guys and gals and whomever you want to be called as, okay, I'm just going to say it like that. This is a huge step for Matt because one, I've even said in the past, like he's a very creative man. Okay. He does a lot of this. He does a lot for this podcast. And this is why I said I always will appreciate it. He does, because a lot of what he does is really what drives our stuff because now, granted, I've asked him to help me kind of help you kind of a deal, but, we'll get there one day. But, right now, my point is he's the behind the scenes guy. He's the one that is a lot of the creative process behind all this. And, I'm just the guy that talks on the mic with him, basically every week, so my point is it's a huge step for him. It's him coming out of the box and saying, hey, you know what? This is not something that I normally have done ever in my lifetime, so, you're looking at him now and you're like, holy shit, like he's, I'm not saying he has to be like a Stephen, King kind of writer, but like, oh my God, I'm sorry, man. I don't know what's going on into me right now, but you're getting to that point where you're like, listen, I'm here and I want to do something different, right? You're trying to be expressive. You're trying to be creative in that sense. And that's where I'm saying, guys, help us share the word, help us do all that. And it helps him. And it ultimately really helps us both in just, kind of driving the overall business. And this is really what it is because, what we do is, yes, of course it's a hobby and we've been doing it for so long, but shit, it would be great if it was a business because I'd say, fuck it. You know what? You and me, let's go to work every day. Let's go record something. I would do it every day. Trust me, I would do it every day if we could actually live off the, the income, but that's just depending. But anyways, guys, let's get into Spawn.
Let's get into some Spawn. All right. I think I've always kind of like been drawn to Spawn, I think as a character, but I think when I was younger, I don't know if I truly understood Spawn until I was older. And maybe that's only because like, I think he's really when you add in, hell and demons and how complex like the character is when you really look at how complex he is. Like, I think when I was younger, I really didn't know much about Spawn until I was older.
So I'm kind of in the same boat. I mean, the thing is with me is that I'll admit and I'll even admit it now. I never really knew who Spawn was. I've heard the name. I knew who Todd McFarlane is. Like, you hear from like comic books and stuff. Like he was kind of like he's kind of like the deeper horror version of like Tim Burton, but like, in the comic book world, and that's where I was like, okay, cool. But you're right. Like even now I'm like, do I know a whole lot about him? No, not personally. I mean, I think he's very unique, as a whole. I think like the couple of times I've actually seen him, honestly, was And I'm gonna say it, Matt. It was like, I would see him in, of course, video games. So I know we'll be talking about it later, but like I did see him in like Mortal Kombat, like some of the newer stuff, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. And I kind of knew a little bit about him, but I never really like kind of dived in.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah. So just again, a brief overview of who Spawn is. So Spawn is actually a guy named Al Simmons, and when he was alive, I'll give it that. When he was alive, Al Simmons was basically, when you look it up, it says mercenary, but he really wasn't a mercenary because he worked for the CIA. He was in the Marine Corps. He was a Secret Service agent, and he was recruited to work in the CIA basically as an assassin. That's basically what he did.
Just for even that description alone, he had 3 different, titles or really positions that he's done and roles. That already sounds like he's a badass. It just saying that he was in the Marine Corps as a lieutenant colonel, a Secret Service agent, and then being a CIA basically assassin cover-up agent, whatever you want to call him. Like, you got to be. Let me put it this way: this guy, one, has clearly been around the block a few times, and he's done some shit. So it's like, again, if I saw him on the street and if I wanted to pick a fight with this guy, I wouldn't fuck with him personally. That's just me.
No, and you probably wouldn't. And basically what Al Simmons was doing for the CIA, he was working for a man named Jason Wynn. And the jobs that he was doing initially, I think, was, taking out certain targets.
Okay.
And then he started realizing that the targets that he was taking out were not like, criminals or terrorists or people that were like necessarily, evil or bad. Like they were innocent people.
So it would be like a mom or a kid or something
basically like just taking out enemies, political enemies or what have you, just for personal reasons or personal gain. And what ended up happening was Jason Wynn ended up killing him for asking too many questions. So when he dies, he goes to hell, basically for all the crimes that he did against humanity. And there's a bigger demon in hell called Malboja, who makes a deal with him that he can see his wife, and in return, he becomes a hell spawn and return to become like his kind of like general of the army of Hell's army.
Okay.
And command kind of Hell's army and be the hell spawn and, overtake, Earth and what have you.
Okay. And then I do remember, I think it was in the animated series, and this is kind of in the beginning where, granted, it was a pretty rough scene, but I do remember him like going back to see his wife, who then apparently it was like one of his best friends that he was basically, they were like together and like he got all fucking rip shit and he was like, this isn't real. And he like goes right back to his, basically his grave, and he didn't realize it. And then he like starts digging it up and like starts to notice that it actually is him. And then he's like, well, then where am I? Or like, who am I? And like, what's going on here kind of a deal.
Right. Because he actually learns, like when he comes back and he goes to see his wife, he actually learns that the deal that he made with Malboja was actually a trick. And that when he's brought back to Earth to see his wife, it's 5 years later. So he has no memory of his past. He's not recognizable by his wife. And so he has to basically atone for the sins that he's made. And this is kind of where the story of Spawn is really tragic, because he's trying to just see his wife and have that kind of like fraction of a life again.
Now the question is, though, I'm not trying to spoil it, but like, does he actually ever get to remember who he is, or does he
later on he does?
Okay, so
it kind of comes like his memory comes in like fraction, like
pieces,
like fragments and pieces. His wife does kind of like remember him, but it does take time. There's a whole part of the story where he kind of like, he uses the cape, that red kind of crazy ass cape that he has. I believe they call it a shroud, not a cape, but whatever. He uses that to look like, I believe in the comic book, he makes it look like Terry, which is his wife's new husband.
Oh, that okay. Yeah.
And he actually has sex with Wanda and gets her pregnant. And so, like, what basically is like they're trying to now, like, in the story, and this is where kind of season 3 of that show kind of takes place, because they're trying to kill Wanda to take the baby to hell, so that the baby can become the hell spawn. Because basically, Spawn is a hell spawn, and now he's having this baby who is supposed to be like almost kind of like this antichrist. Type figure, where if he's good, he will conquer hell. If he's bad, then he'll conquer heaven. Kind of a deal. So but yeah, I mean, it's really kind of a tragic story of Spawn really coming back, thinking like he's going to see his wife, and then he's going to take over hell, and then realizing that he was tricked, and he kind of gets really, really pissed for a while in that show, and that's probably where you're like, this is this shit's really dark. Because the show is really much darker than the movie ever was. Well,
I mean, I think in the first like 5 minutes of the actual show, it's literally, if I'm not mistaken, it's like 2 gangsters or 2 mobsters or whatever. They're like basically killing reporters. And I remember it was like all the bloodiness and all that stuff. But then like the problem was Spawn, because he doesn't know who he is yet. He comes out of nowhere and just like really fuck shits up, and like he like cuts their heads out. Like he does a lot of basically to them, and then like that stupid it was that cop. I'm trying to. It was basically the first like few minutes. It was the detective, I think. Him and his little crony or his assistant or whatever.
Well, the little skinny one I think that one's Twitch.
Twitch, all right, and then the kind of the big. I
want to say that one was Sam.
What the detective basically? Yeah.
Twitch's partner was Sam Burke.
Okay.
And then Twitch is his full name is Maximilian Stephen Percival Twitch Williams III.
Fuck that. If your name, I just call you by one thing, and I'm not calling you that whole fucking name. That is.
Well, I think that's probably why they just call him Twitch.
That's a good thing.
That's probably a good thing.
Yeah, because there's no fucking way I'm going to remember all that. But no, I mean, and again, like just kind of like I said, watching it a little bit, it's just like I was just like, oh, okay. Now, granted, Matt knows that I'm not like a big fan of horror and like depending on what it is, like scary movies and such, but. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, of course, I had to watch this at night, because that's just my life now. And I'm watching it, and I'm like, oh shit, this is gonna, for me, it's just like, okay, now I'm, it's building that kind of story up a little bit, and I'm kind of watching it more, and I'm like, kind of looking around, I'm like, all right, yeah, okay, no one's gonna come out of nowhere, gonna fucking kill the shit out of me. They're not gonna like come out of the TV or something. Like, like it was just getting. I mean, again, it's an animated show, but I was surprised that it was showing a lot of the goriness. And what I do find interesting is that and I never knew this because like I said, I was just trying to watch it for the first time, is that literally Todd McFarlane is just like, hey guys, let me talk to you about the story about Spawn. The fact that he narrates the damn story.
And he does it, he does that at the beginning of every single episode, which was really, it's really, really cool that he does that.
Well, it's unique because I've never ever seen a TV show. The only one okay, sorry, let me rephrase this. There's only been one probably movie I could say that has done it, which is, I was going to say Disney, like Fantasia, something like that. I've seen like people narrate and shit, but like, you don't see too many like directors or things like that to be doing.
And that was really cool. So, kind of going into the, the creation of Spawn, Todd McFarlane actually created the character when he was 16.
So,
there's actually, we have a drawing in our drive, and I mean it's kind of a crazy I don't know what that other hand is doing back there, but maybe he's pulling up the short side.
Let me pull it up here. So, I mean, for a 16-year-old, it's not horrible, but it's not like the greatest.
It's not horrible, but I mean it does give you the idea, but. Yeah, the initial idea for Spawn, and this came from a Facebook post. Spawn was not initially from hell. It was more of a sci-fi story. And then it was like many years later that he actually changed it and decided that Spawn would come from the pit of hell and would be an actual hell spawn.
So now I'm just trying to think of how. So if he created this back in the early '90s, you know, well, now I'm just trying to. Is he in his 50s now? Roughly.
Todd McFarlane?
Yeah.
I would assume he'd probably be in about his 50s.
The only reason why I'm asking is because, like, if that is the case, then yeah. So then if he created Spawn, you know, with the comic book, or really the comics that because I know he also developed his own comic book, you know, company.
Image.
Image Comics.
Yeah, we have a section on that one.
Right. No, I was just saying though, like, so then he must have been doing this, like, he was like his early 20s. So really he made the character.
The debut of Spawn was 1992 in the comics.
Right. So then what I would think is that, so he did it at 16 to create that initial drawing. And then, like, we'll say, 5, maybe 7 years later or something, like, I'm just throwing a number out here, but then all of a sudden he's just like, I'm just going to make a comic book company and then create the character that I created from a while back. So, I mean, it's interesting though, because, like, you know, even at 16, like, I'm not gonna lie, man, like at 16 years old, I'm pretty sure I was thinking to myself, like, I don't really know what the hell I'm going to do with the rest of my life. He already had a plan, which you know this. I mean, kids don't have a fucking plan, man. They usually don't until it's like they have to have almost like an epiphany, or like some kind of like, holy shit, there it is. That's what I want to do. And it's like, and some people never get that. No,
and I mean, you're talking, you know, when he was 16, he drew this picture, and, you know, he had this kind of sci-fi backstory, but he kind of also stated, and I don't know where this came from. I think it was from an interview that he did, but his girlfriend, who is his wife now, his girlfriend at the time stated that what if he was coming back for love instead of something like revenge or justice?
Which, like, you would look at, like, you know, like Batman, Superman, like, or some of like the comic books, in a sense, like all the things that you've seen before, which makes sense.
Yeah, and that ultimately is kind of what changed that story. And I think, like, you know, coming from hell, he ultimately he came back for the love of his wife. And that's kind of where he kind of adopts the Spawn, and being, you know, not wanting to fight for hell, but wanting to, you know, atone for his sin and kind of do the right thing. And that's ultimately, you know, kind of what the character is about.
Well, I mean, what I find interesting too, Matt, is that, you know, when you look at, like, I'm going to say, like, when you look at like the Batman origins, right? You know, it's like a very dark, you know, story where, you know, Batman loses his parents, and then, you know, he, you know, basically gets raised by, you know, Alfred, and then so on and so forth. He becomes the Batman, but like in a darker way. This is just like, he had a full life. He already had his wife. You know, he died because he asked too many damn questions. And then all of a sudden he makes a deal with a demon, and then comes back. And then, you know, it's just, I don't know. And I hate saying it, like, which one would you rather have, Matt? Like, if you had to, unfortunately, let's say an origin story like that, either you have your parents be killed like that, or have...
I mean, if I was in hell and there was a demon that was like, you can see your wife one last time, and then you're going to be, you know, my commander of my, you know, my army in hell, I probably would be like, yeah, send me up there. I'll, you know, I would love to see my wife at least one last time. I mean, because ultimately that's ended up, like, what ended up happening was, like, he told them that if he saw his wife one last time, he would then, you know, go back down to hell and command the army. And, you know, that's where we have Violator that comes in, and he's the one that kind of guides the hell spawns into becoming like what they're supposed to become. And, you know, with Al Simmons being Spawn, yes, like, you have that kind of tear between, like, who he was as a person, knowing, like, shit, like, I really fucked up in my life, and now I have a chance to maybe atone for a little bit of what I've done, even though, like, as Spawn, like, he sees people that are doing terrible things and just wants to do terrible things to them. And then you have other people on the flip side that are trying to guide him down the right road and being like, listen, the more power that you use now, the more you're going to be stuck in hell forever.
Yeah, I mean, it's really a catch-22. You know, you're unfortunately you made a deal. It's like making a deal with the devil, basically, and you're just like, well, I can either go against it, and at this point, you're already fucked. I mean, you're basically there, so there's nothing you can do about it. So either you make shit worse for yourself, or you just do as they say and try to make the best out of you can. So it's like, but you know, in Spawn's case, it's like, you know, unfortunately, I'm not saying that his jobs really created his choices in a sense, but like, you know, ultimately, yeah, I mean, the people that should be really atoning, not so much him, it's the people that were making him do these things, you know, and so
that becomes part of the story is like, you know, he really wanted to make Jason Wynn pay for what he did.
Oh yeah.
And, you know, that becomes part of the story. Like, you know, he can't really let go of what had happened to him, you know, and then you have other people that are trying to kill his wife. And then, you know, there's other things that he's like, you know, they're trying to kill my wife. So now I need to kill them because they're, you know, so he keeps going down this road. And that's where, you know, you have this like violator clown figure. And he's like, oh yeah, use your power, kill them. Like, that's what you need to do. And then on the other side, you have Cogliostro on the other side going, you can't do this because you're going to be stuck in hell forever. You need to, you know, go down a better road.
Right.
So, I mean, you have this like, you know, angel demon thing, you know, with them talking, you know, on his shoulder, being like, you know, yes, do the thing, and no, don't do the thing. And
well, yeah, I mean, like I said, it's just, he's put into a tight spot. It's like, you know, that's really he's the perfect definition of really what an anti-hero is. Like, it's because you're looking at the fact that, you know, when you look at an anti-hero in general, right, you're saying that, yes, he is a hero, but he does bad things to, you know, basically justify the means of what he's doing, you know, even though it's technically wrong in the case of like a hero, right? So like, if Cap was all of a sudden like, you know what, I'm just going to start, you know, taking sniper rifles and start shooting people's heads off. I mean, he has probably shot a lot of people with weapons before, but like, you know, it'd be kind of like Batman using like basically his pistols back in the day when he was originally supposed to be using them. Like, if he kept doing that, then yeah, he would have been a darker, you know, anti-hero in a sense. But like, you know, looking at Spawn, it's like, you know, yes, he's a hero in a sense of like he might help the innocent if he can, but reality is he'll probably just kill everyone because that's just what it is and that's what's going to happen, you know. And he doesn't really have that luxury of, you know, good or bad or this and that.
That's really where they're, you know, Cog. I'll call him Cog instead of Cogliostro because that's too long to say. But Cog is really trying to, you know, being a former Hellspawn himself, like he's trying to guide him down that right path of being like, hey, you know, there is a better way to go. And if you go down the road that you're going, you're going to give Malboja exactly what he wants. Like, there's a better way to go.
Well, because I'm assuming Malboja was just using, let's say, Cog, right? Up until a certain point, then he just said, all right, you're done. Fuck you. And then moves on to something else.
I mean, Cog basically was like, I'm not using my power anymore. Like, I'm done. And basically just like he has just a little bit of power left and he refuses to use it, but that little bit of power allows him to stay alive. If he chooses to use the power, then he basically would die, but he would be able to use the power to do whatever Hellspawn can do. But but that's pretty much, you know.
I mean, it's smart of him to do, but it also kind of sucks because what if, unfortunately, like there was no other choice, and it's like,
yeah, I mean, he chose humanity, and he became humanity, and he threw off the Hellspawn kind of role.
Right. I just, what I was saying was,
that's where the comic books, like the TV show, if you remember, right in the very, very beginning of every episode, there was that counter.
Yeah. Or yeah. Okay.
That's the same in the comic books. The comic books all had that same counter, and that was how much power Spawn has.
Oh,
So
and
if that
current
counter ever went to 0,
then he's dead, or
then
he's
he
just no
goes
longer.
right back to hell, and it's kind of over.
That makes sense. I didn't know what that counter was, to be honest.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that was his power level, basically, in a sense. Okay.
Yeah. So every time he uses his power as Spawn, the counter goes down.
That makes sense.
So let's go into some Image comics. So like we said before, he debuted in 1992.
So, and then what is this? Started in 1992 by several Marvel and DC comic artists, including Todd McFarlane. Interesting. So, all right. So basically, they were just like, we're done with you guys. We want to start something new. And just were like, fuck it.
Basically, yeah. I mean, a lot of them left Marvel and DC because they weren't getting credit for a lot of what they were doing, and they wanted to do something that was different. So they started Image Comics.
Was Todd part of DC, or was he Marvel?
I don't know the answer to that.
I'll tell you.
I want to say maybe DC, but
yeah, go ahead. Keep talking. I'm going to look it up.
So right now, as far as Image Comics, and they are still a thing, but they've faced some problems. I think around 2021 ish, but they are still a comic book company. So right now, the artists that are on the board of directors are Robert Kirkman, Eric Larson, Todd McFarlane, Mark Silvestri, Jim Valentino, and Eric Stevenson. Which right now they still have G.I. Joe, Transformers, Walking Dead, and Invincible. Those are the other major.
Oh, so they do the comics for okay. That's what I was curious about. Okay.
Right. They have the major comic books for those, at least those 4. I mean, they have other ones that are kind of like minor ones, but
yeah, well, technically I know.
I mean, Robert Kirkman, obviously with Walking Dead.
Well, I was also going to say, I also didn't realize they made Kick-Ass, which that was actually another like little fun one that I remember. I loved watching the movies, but, and then I see like Jupiter's Legacy,
which was a failed Netflix show.
Yeah,
but.
and then Stray Dogs. I don't know. It was just something random.
Yeah.
But it looks like, so Tom McFarlane started out, actually was Marvel. He did not do in DC, which I was actually kind of surprised. But yeah, also Todd McFarlane's a little bit older than I thought. He's like actually in his early 60s, which I was a little surprised. So yeah, so technically you're right. He must have been a lot older. So he was like in his early 30s probably when he started to really kind of go and, start working on this, which again, I just was curious because I didn't realize it's almost like probably for his sake. I mean, I don't know if he had other jobs beforehand, but he probably had like I wouldn't say like a midlife crisis quite yet, but like an early life crisis of like, hey, I'm like doing this. I'm like doing what I wanted to do since I was a kid. Yeah. And now all of a sudden I'm just going to be like, I'm going to start doing this on my own, which is kind of cool in a way.
Yeah. I mean, I want to say like when I was in high school, at least it definitely was after 92, and it might still be a thing now, but like, I think when I was in high school and maybe shortly after high school, I think like the big thing with the name Todd McFarlane were the figures.
Oh, okay. So like the Spawn.
Not so much like I mean, there were like toys that he made that you can get like, like Toys R Us and like the Walmart and the toy stores, but it was more of like the collector's versions of like the action figures and the superhero figures that you could get. Like the Todd McFarlane ones at the time were like the most super detailed,
like probably more sought after in this case, besides like going to like Marvel and saying, hey, we're going to make this like replica, whatever.
Yeah. Cause I mean, most toys, like, you have like, I don't know, somebody from like Marvel or whatever, and it would kind of maybe look like the person from the comic book or whatever. But like when you got that Todd McFarlane figure, like the facial details and the fingers and the, everything was like so super detailed. Like the clothing was meticulously like detailed on it. It was like more of a showpiece than it was like something you would actually play with.
So it sounds like that's your kind of guy, Matt, because the amount of shit that you collected when it comes to collectibles. I'm just saying.
I didn't have a whole lot of Todd McFarlane figures, but I did appreciate them for what they were, because they were, I mean, they still are. I think they probably still make a lot of them.
Well, it sounds like you need to go find them, Matt.
But they are pretty decent, and more of the detailed, figurines that you can get.
So it kind of sounds like you need to go find some like G.I. Joes or Transformers, and like
they're wicked expensive too. I mean, some of them are like 150, 300,
Yeah, just
450.
kidding.
Like they're really, really expensive ones.
just kidding. If maybe you won like the lottery, or maybe we ever took off big, maybe you could look at doing that. But
All right, so some of the details about Spawn, and this is one like I wouldn't have really like. I mean, not that I really look at how many how much somebody weighs.
yeah, I'm looking at that too.
I'm looking at when I first saw this, and I was like, "Holy shit, this is a big dude."
Well, not even that. He's a big pile of shit. Then that's what I would look at.
Spawn's body is quite dense, and he apparently, from what I looked up, he weighs over 450 pounds.
Now I'm going to say this, Matt. Okay, because I know looking at the show, it's completely different. The fact that I don't know exactly how tall he is, but I know he's kind of a larger guy. But like, he's not fat. Okay, he's definitely not fat.
No, and I think the 450 pounds is like kind of that necroplasm, and it's like that symbiotic suit. So I think it's like, I mean, obviously too, like you have that shroud cape that he has too. Like,
I mean, what does that weigh? 200 pounds that he's carrying around? I don't know.
But there has to be a lot with like the type of body that he has, and the necroplasm has to add that density to him. And that gives him like the superhuman strength, the speed, the durability. But 450, I mean, I don't know if I 100% believe 450 pounds, but and that was on a couple of sites. So it wasn't just like, yeah, I found that on Wikipedia, bro.
It's 450 pounds, bro. No, I mean,
it was on a few different sites. So, I mean,
I get what you're saying. Yeah. It just surprises me too. Cause like, like for example, it's like you look at the Hulk. Yeah. Okay. And granted, he's going to be a hell of a lot more than 450 pounds, but like, it's also the size of him. It's like, there's more to him. He's like, I'm just going to throw a random number, but I would say he's probably like either my height or maybe a little bit taller. Like in that suit.
I want to say probably as Spawn, he's probably a lot taller.
Well, I mean,
I would want to say like maybe 7 or 8.
I don't know. I thought that was pushing it. I thought he would look like a normal size. I didn't think he was like, 7 feet.
I don't know.
But no, but again, still 450 pounds is quite a bit for a person.
Like I said, I mean, it could just be the necroplasm, but like I said too, he also wears a living symbiotic costume.
Wow, it kind of reminds me of something.
So like while wearing it, the host assumes the dominant role over the suit. So his shroud, the spikes, the chains, the skulls are all part of an organism bonded to his central nervous system that will protect Spawn even if he's unconscious.
So that reminds me of literally 2 characters. And what characters do you think that would be, Matt?
Well, I mean, right out of the gate, that's obviously Venom.
What do you think the other one would be, if you had to take a guess? That I was thinking of.
I mean, other than Venom, would be like Carnage, something like that. But
I was thinking like Ghost Rider.
I mean, Ghost Rider doesn't really have like a living symbiotic.
No. I'm not talking about. It's not more the symbiotic suit thing. It's more the chains, the skulls, the spikes, that kind of detailed kind of stuff. That's what I was more thinking of. Venom for sure. Venom was the biggest thing, but like I would say details of like Ghost Rider as well, which I found that kind of interesting. Where because literally if he's sleeping, it's like okay, yep, I'm just going to start attacking people and no problem at all.
Yeah, and you actually do see like the necroplasm, like when he gets injured, because like he'll actually bleed like that kind of like Predator
green,
neon green. But yeah, it'll actually protect him too, even if he's unconscious. So if he does get knocked out or something, which is unheard of, but if he does, the suit actually protects him from getting killed or whatever.
It's still weird. I don't know exactly how that would work, but okay.
It's weird when you're watching like the animated show, because at some points in the animated show, it doesn't look like it would be a living, costume, because when he pulls off the mask, sometimes it looks like cloth.
Yeah, and so that was actually in the first I believe episode or 2 or whatever, which I can't remember which one, because he does take it off. He's like, oh, what the hell? What do I look like?
And sometimes like when he gets shot, it looks like cloth, and then the cloth and him heal at the same time. And it's like, what is happening right now?
Well, yeah, because he looks like, basically his head is like, I don't even know how to describe it. It kind of reminds me of
like ground beef.
Well, that I was also going to say like Deadpool, like in that, like the the kind of weird scarring, but it's like basically brownish in a sense, and so it's like
whatever that show is with the like the fast food cup and the little ground beef dude and the fries, whatever that Adult Swim.
Aqua Teen Force, I think, yeah, or something like I know exactly what you're talking about.
That little meatball guy is Spawn's face.
Oh God,
yes,
yeah. That's besides the
personality, the personality is obviously different. So the costume can also feed off evil energy from the physical world. It can feed off ambient evil of people, animals. There's a fictional rat-like rodents. They're giant ones. Bats, red foxes, mongooses, even certain parts of the city, the suit can feed off of that evil energy.
So I'm going to stop you there. So the fact that it can basically it could feed off anything. It seems like anything that's evil. I mean, the fact that it said animals and then we're just like going into like specific, different animals in a sense. And I'm just sitting there like, okay, so we're talking about cats. You know what? That's a good thing. Like, feed off the energy of evil cats.
You can feed off all the fucking cats you want.
Trust me, I'd rather have them feed off the goddamn cats than anything else. But no, and then these giant rats,
giant rat-like rodents.
Oh, sorry, rat-like rodents. My bad. So
I'm assuming if the rodents, they're already rat-like. But.
So then, what the fuck is it? Is it a rodent or is it a rat? So like, I don't know. But
no, they're giant, whatever they are.
All right, but I mean, and then the fact that it's talking about like different cities, like just a simple city, like if we're talking like L.A., okay, we're talking like that's huge. We're talking about and this thing's just
like certain parts. I mean, obviously, like if you're in is there a bad part of Detroit or are all parts of Detroit bad?
I mean, shit. I mean, if you look at Chicago, you look at all kinds of different places.
I mean, obviously, like yes, there are. You look at Manchester where I live. There are bad. I mean, you look at Nashua, the whole city's bad. But
well, thanks, man. Thanks for pointing that out. Yeah, appreciate that.
But like Nashua, Manchester. You look at New York. There are cities there. You look at Detroit. Like there are certain parts of the city that are obviously like, there's more gangs or there's more drugs or there's there are things that are evil.
Let me put it this way, Matt. I know we're talking about like Detroit shit like that, but New York City as a whole. God damn it. They pretty much think that they live in their own damn state. Okay. It is a state.
But not all places in New York.
Hold on.
Like that.
No.
There are more suburban places that are
okay. We're talking about New York.
Londonderry.
No, I understand.
You know what I mean? Like
all I'm saying is that when we're talking about not New York, the state, we're talking about the city of New York. This whole, I understand the different boroughs and shit like that. What I'm saying is that majority of New York, besides certain areas, there are some. Who would want to live there personally?
I do understand, but I think what it's saying is like certain parts of the city, not like just the city as a whole. There are certain parts that are probably worse because of like the eastern side of New York City is where the such and such gang resides. Well, that part obviously would be heavier with whatever evil energy.
Because I know this is actually based in New York, if I'm not mistaken, right?
I believe so, but I couldn't give you like.
No, I mean it could be a fictional town or city or whatever, but I thought it was New York.
I want to say it's New York because it in the animated show it looks more like New York. But all right, so part of his physical power comes from the suit because of the connection to the central nervous system. So part of what he's able to do is he's able to shift his shape. And that includes the manifestation of spikes, armor plating, or transforming the shroud into a battle axe.
So the cape-like looking thing, the shroud, can turn into a battle axe.
It can turn into a battle axe.
Interesting.
The shroud itself is an effective offensive weapon able to strike in battle with its extreme precision, severing limbs and or disarming enemies with specific angled pokes and prods.
I just find it interesting that it's specifically angled pokes and prods. So the fact that it's like, oh, give me a Gucci goo.
Well,
like, no.
I mean, the shroud is one of these things. Like, it's you look at Doctor Strange, right? And you're like, you know, his cape was kind of magic, right? Like with Spawn, like it wasn't just like a cape. When it describes it as like a shroud, he could use it just as like, I mean, this thing was like it would go all the way to the ground and then kind of back up.
Oh yeah, no, I do know that. Yes.
Sometimes, like if he was in an alley, this freaking shroud would cover the entire alley, and he could like just hide within it, and nobody would see anything because the shrouds are kind of just all over the place. And that's kind of the ability that he has, is like he's able to kind of increase the size of this thing, like probably to no limit. Like he can probably cover like a pretty big area with it.
Well, I mean, and it's unique in its own right because, you know, when you look at like basically any other comic books or like characters or things like that, I mean, like I said, the only closeness it could get to is the whole Venom thing. But even Venom as a whole, it's not like you're going to see him like, okay, let me. Basically, all it does is just like devours, you know, people around him in a sense. But like other than that, it's like it's not like he's basically imbuing darkness all around him. And like, you know,
yeah, but I mean, I'm assuming the shroud would kind of look the same as kind of what Venom would do. Is, I mean, Venom would kind of shoot these like black like tendril things, and I'm assuming that the shroud would kind of do the same thing. It would just kind of like do these like, you know, obviously cloak like things, like, you know what I mean? But
I know. The problem is bad is that when I'm watching you do this, I know people at home can't listen or really see what you're doing. It's just it's kind of funny.
I'm doing like Spider-Man things over here. Yeah,
he's like Spider-Man. Pew, 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 no, I know. I just thought it was funny when you were doing it. But yeah,
I mean, I would assume like the shroud would kind of just like take on kind of a life of its own and could like kind of almost like become like a hardened spike in itself, like just taking out enemies left and right and like whacking them, and you know,
and
being able to like pick them up and throw them, and you know, the shroud itself is able to kind of do that.
It almost has like a mind of its own.
So some of his other abilities is phasing, psychic link, superhuman senses, telekinesis, cosmic awareness, not comic awareness. That'd be like,
be like, whoa,
right? Whoa. So cosmic awareness and transformation, which he does, I believe, a little bit later in the he does it actually in the show.
Okay.
But he does it in the comic books as well. In the show, he actually he uses the shroud to become a version of himself. So he looks like
yeah.
He actually looks how he would have looked like.
Didn't he?
Normally.
I thought he did that did he do it in the early like episodes? I swore that I thought he did.
I want to say he did it in one of the early episodes. I know in the comic books he actually becomes Terry and has sex with his wife and makes her pregnant.
Oh, so that's okay.
Yeah,
gotcha. That makes sense.
And then what we talked about earlier, he does have vast magical powers, but he does have a limited power supply. And in the comic books, it would be shown to the reader in form of a counter that began at 9999.
Which was in the TV show, which it did show that.
The show started at 9999. So every time Spawn would use his energy, the counter drains. So I mean, whenever he relies on the costumes, natural abilities, or weapons, rather than the magical abilities, the power source is kind of infinite. It's whenever he uses those like magical type abilities.
So when he transforms to basically have sex with his wife, that's part of the
right
the issue there.
It's whenever he uses kind of like those magical abilities, is when that counter goes down. And you know what was said here was like one of Spawn's like biggest limitations is his imaginations, like the ability to create something kind of in that moment. He didn't really possess in that time. So
I mean, it's interesting here that, you know, it said basically his powers in that sense were supposed to be like Jesus-like kind of powers in a sense, the ability, like you said, the imagination. So basically, instead of water, it would be wine, or to part the Red Sea, or so to do stuff like that, to basically think the unimaginable in a sense, or basically in his. I mean, granted, he's floating the entire time, but I was just like, hey, like walking on water, or whatever. But like you're right. I feel like. I think with him, it's like it sucks because one, again, I understand he only knows certain things about his past, and he starts to gain that memory back later on. But like, not only that, if he's not really understanding the world around him in a sense, and he's not that creative in certain ways, and he's only thinking about having sex with his wife and basically having a baby, I'm just saying, like, there's more to it. And I think you're right. I think he just kind of lacks that, and it's more like he's just a killing machine. He doesn't think about what can I do with my powers and make it, work, well with what I'm doing in that situation, or like, make things easier or whatever. But I agree. It's just, I don't know. Like I haven't really watched the show, and I feel like I should give it a shot more. But like, I just feel like he's kind of bland as like a, kind of a being, cause like, you're right. It's like he just kills, and that's kind of the end of the story there, because it's not like he's doing anything to really make him, I mean, I get it. I understand Cog's kind of helping him out, in that sense, but like, he's not really doing anything to like, I guess, make more of an effort to, be that creative in a sense.
Yeah. I mean, he's not going out there to be that creative about it, but I think that's where you get that tragic part of his character where, it's really a story of good and evil. And I do kind of want to skip this section and get to maybe not every one of these characters, because we're getting kind of close here, but maybe touch on Cog, and then get into, Malboja and Violator before we get into like the movie and the show, even though we talked a crap ton about the show.
So far, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it really is a story about good and evil. And like, I think where he doesn't really have that imagination, because it's either like, I'm either a killer or I'm not. Like, there's not really like, he's not the type of person that's going to be like, how do I go about killing this person that's going to be interesting and fun?
Yeah, no, you're right.
It's like, no, I can just and do it and not think about it. And
just don't kill.
It's just kind of like that. But getting into, I guess I'll do Cog. So he first appears in the comics and in the show as a homeless man. So he kind of lives in the same alley that, Al kind of settles in when he becomes Spawn. But he teaches Spawn how to use his powers and the limitations, and he reveals that he used to be Hellspawn himself and then has very little power left. And, we did kind of get into that, but Cog is really just that character right in at least the first part of that, those comics, where he's trying to bring the good part of Al out so that he doesn't become that Hellspawn and basically like take over the earth. Eventually, though, in the comics, Cog is actually revealed to be Cain, from the Bible. Cain, the one that killed his brother, and he actually betrays Spawn in the books, because Malboja gives him some kind of a box, and he goes back to Spawn, and he basically says like, "Oh, I was given this box," and then when Spawn opens it, like, his power as a Hellspawn gets taken away and put in the box, and he can't open it again.
Okay.
So Cog ends up like betraying him, and his power gets kind of removed from him for a little bit. I mean, right now he is still Spawn, but right now, I believe in the current comics, his actual title is Omega Spawn.
Oh. So he's not the Alpha; he's the Omega.
He's the Omega Spawn. So Violator. I will say this though, what the '90s movie did, and that one came out in '97, John.
Thank you, man.
In case you were wondering, John Leguizamo.
Yes,
I will give it. I will give it this. That was probably the best part of that movie.
So him dressing up as him
playing Violator, in that movie was probably the best part of that movie.
I'm surprised because when you look at John Leguizamo like as a whole, and you're like when I think of like another like horrible '90s movie, the Mario Brothers, when he was Luigi, I'm hoping that in this case with Violator, he did it justice.
I think he was the best part of the movie.
Okay,
but he, as a character like Violator / the clown, which he, I don't know if it was really a punishment. I'm assuming like whenever he goes to train like to guide the new hell spawns, he has a new form each time. So he could be a clown, he could be a woman, he could be whatever. This time he just happened to be a clown that was 3'10", 3 feet 10 inches tall. That's how tall he was.
Even in the show,
I'm assuming in the show he was 3'10".
I mean, he didn't look 3'10" in the show.
He was short as a.
I know he was short, but he didn't look that damn short.
That's the stat I got was 3'10".
All right.
But he was basically overweight, balding clown, and then he worked for Malboja to guide the new house spawns. And although the clown persona is like it's quite humorous and crude, the Violator, which is a demon, is much more powerful, and he views humanity as weak.
Yes, I did.
So humanity for him is very weak, and he is very much more powerful. So he has like just no love for humanity, and when he's guiding these hell spawns, he just wants them to wipe out humanity at all. He wants them to basically use all of their power to wipe out humanity, so that they can go down to hell and rule over the armies. Like that's kind of like his biggest thing, and he's not the only one. I think I didn't write it down, but he has a sister, and I can't think of her name, but it does start with a V, and it's not Violator.
Violet. I'm just gonna throw it out there, but I don't know.
No, it's kind of a similar word to Violator, but I can't think of it right now. But I guess we'll move on to Malboja, who's the main antagonist of the whole thing. He's the former master of the 8th Circle of Hell. I mean, ends up getting decapitated by Spawn.
No, but now I'm curious. Do you know how many circles? I guess the master circles there are in hell.
I have no idea how many circles there are.
I was just wondering because I didn't realize he was the former master of the 8th Circle of Hell. It's like, okay, well, cool. I mean, that's great. I'm
assuming if there's 8, then there's 7 other masters of hell. So
I mean, I guess, or it could be maybe up to 10 where you meet the devil. I don't know. I just surprised. That's all.
So the freak is another enemy. I don't have him listed, because naming all the enemies and various characters in Spawn would obviously take more than one episode, and I'm not, we don't have to do that. But he does exist currently as a ghost in the freak's body, which is now just full of necroplasm, like Spawn's. So now he does kind of still exist, but he's
not really there.
He's not really there. Billy Kincaid, who's in the show, he kind of looks like a weirdo in the show, but
I don't. So that's the thing. I don't think I got that far enough where I probably met him yet.
So he is basically a pedophilia child killer. He is basically a lackey of Malboja. He was in hell. Malboja returned him to Earth, and Spawn basically goes after him.
Yeah, I mean, I think
I think at one point he does kidnap his. I don't know if it's Terry's daughter or if it's his daughter. I think in the movie it was his daughter.
Oh, okay.
But in the show, I think it's Terry's daughter.
Well, because I was going to say, besides Al basically fucking his wife in Terry's form, does he have? I couldn't remember. Did he have a daughter? Originally,
I don't remember in the show if it was if that was his daughter or if it was Terry's. I know in the movie, I know in the movie it was his.
Okay,
but in the show, she always referred to him as the sad man. That was the sad man.
So it didn't really give you a conclusion on whose really daughter it was then.
So I don't think it was. I don't think it was him. But
I mean, no offense though. I mean, just for, I know we're trying to, kind of wrap certain things up here, but like, with the pedophilic, child killer. Yeah, no offense. If I was Spawn, I'd go after his ass too. Like,
well, and he already died and came back from hell to be on Earth to do Malbosia's, like, whatever Malbosia wanted him to do.
well, I mean, the fact that he's a child killer. I mean, come on now. You're damn right. I'd be going after his ass.
Well, and I think Spawn only went after him because he kidnapped like the older child that Wanda had. So that was like kind of where Spawn was like going after him for. But he is one of the villains in Spawn. So,
but yes,
he was worth mentioning. I mean, there's a lot that could be worth mentioning, but like I said, there's so many,
right characters and so on and so forth.
I mean, there's like other hell spawns. There's, so you have this like kind of bounty hunter thing that like hell sends bounty hunters to keep the hell spawns in line. But then you also have heaven.
Oh, please tell me they have bounty hunters too.
That sends bounty hunters to hunt the hell spawns. So it's kind of like they have these like competing, spawns kind of fighting both sides, because when he fails to do Malbosia's bidding, hell will send their bounty hunters to basically kill him and keep him in line. And then when he's doing, various killing of like Billy, and he kills Jason Wynn, and he does all these different things.
Now you got heaven.
Now you got heaven sending bounty hunters going, well, you're proving that you're still a hell spawn, and we're going to kill you now.
Again, he's literally in a catch-22 his whole situation.
It's terrible. But that's the thing. That's Spawn for you, right?
No, that is true. But I mean, I know. So like the movie, this is
movie.
Well, I know we talked very little, of course, clearly so far, but like
we talked a lot about the show, but the movie.
Yes. The one thing that I do know that, and I believe if I'm not mistaken too, the same actor does the same voice in the show, which would be Keith David for Spawn, if I'm not mistaken, right? Because I know isn't he in the movie technically?
He doesn't play Spawn in the movie.
I thought was he the voice though?
No.
So who plays Spawn in the movie?
Not Keith David.
Keith David is the voice, if I'm not mistaken, in the animated show. I know that. I didn't know. I thought Keith David was in the movie.
Michael J. White.
Oh,
he is Spawn, and then Martin Sheen is Jason Wynn.
Okay. All right. No, I did not. Okay. I honestly thought Keith David was the one that at least did the voice. I didn't know that. Okay. Nope. Then I clearly I was wrong, but I'm pretty sure in the animated show, Keith David was the voice of Spawn. Because that's what I do remember. But clearly I was wrong. So, my bad.
You know who did the voice for Malbosia?
For what, the animated?
No, the movie.
Who?
Frank Welker.
The guy who plays basically like every other fucking animated character on the planet Earth. So
Yeah.
like basically who did Megatron and Transformers and, Fred and fucking Scooby-Doo and shit. So
yeah.
He does he's like, hey guys, like, does he sound like that or,
No, I'm sure he probably did more of like more of the Megatron like style voice, I'm sure.
Yeah.
No, but it was Michael J. White who, I mean, and if you know anything about him in the 90s, he was more of like the martial arts guy when you had a black, you needed a black guy who
knew martial arts. He was going to kick your ass real fucking
Michael
quick.
J. White.
He's been in, it's kind of weird. He's always been in those kind of weird, kind of B style movies. Like he hasn't really been in like big movies. You know what I mean? He's not, I'm not saying he's not a famous actor, but it's not like you're seeing like I Am Legend or something. You know what I'm saying? Like a box office movie. It's always those like kind of smaller movies I've always seen him in.
No, it's like Never Back Down, Blood and Bone.
It's the random shit.
Falcon Rising.
Yeah, none of these fucking movies that I've never heard of. I'm not gonna lie, I've never seen them unless you know, like, you know what I'm saying? It's he's always plays the guy like it's the
what I did like him like though is in Tyson, just kind of a side thing. But when he did the Tyson movie, I did like that one.
Well, it's kind of like he always plays those roles that it's like he's in the corner. He's
like I
just
said, if you
beating the
needed,
shit out of somebody.
if you needed a black guy in the '90s, other than Wesley Snipes, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
If you needed a black dude who was good with martial arts, it was Michael J. White.
No, all I was just saying is like in the movie, it's always like he's in the corner of like a boxing, like he's just punching a bag, and then it's just like all of a sudden he just is minding his own damn business, and everyone's like, "What you looking at, fool?" And he's like, just doing whatever. He's doing his thing, and then they try to go after him, and it's like, just leave the poor man alone, man.
So Rotten Tomatoes for this movie, the tomato meter, which is like the actual like movie critics, like that's not the audience rating, that's the actual critics. It sits at 17%.
Which, okay, and this is why I said, Matt, the 90s, again, we love the 90s, the nostalgic piece of it, but the problem is there are some pieces of the 90s that are just, we don't want to relive. And this is unfortunately one of those things that, like I said, I never watched the movie Spawn, and this is why it's telling me probably not to watch it, because the audience rating is not much better.
I think for a 90s movie, obviously the CGI looked terrible, I think in parts. I think if you look at some of the things that they did, it's some of the CGI does look okay, but it doesn't look great in a lot of parts, especially whenever they show hell, like it just looks terrible. But I think like when you look at how Michael J. White played Spawn, and I think that this is where the biggest fail is, because when I watched the movie, and I know, like, listen, everything that we talked about, like Al Simmons / Spawn, he's a very tragic character, right? Like, but in the movie, all he does is complain. They make him look so weak and sort of really pathetic until almost like the very end of the movie. And it's like when if I'm watching a movie for Spawn, I want to see him kick the shit out of stuff.
Well, not only that, take the fucking guy that you've gotten already from the actual animated show, or even the comic books for that matter. Wait, man, it sounds like we're seeing a theme here from even back in the 90s here. Like, you had a guideline and they just didn't follow it.
I would only assume that Todd McFarlane was responsible for at least a good part of this movie. So I'm assuming like he must have signed off on a lot of what was going on.
Then he may not have been thinking clearly.
But what I would almost do, and I know that they're making one right now, and I know that they just titled it King Spawn, but what I would seriously hope that they would do
is learn from their mistake.
Is keep keep the horror movie route that they started with the show.
Yep.
And really, maybe like Blumhouse or Jason Wan, like those horror like directors and producers.
Oh, you mean James Wan, right?
James Wan, yeah, sorry. But James Wan, like Blumhouse, like get some of those like producers and studios involved and make something that's like, we're not just talking like Marvel or DC. We're talking about an anti-hero comic book character from freaking hell. You know what I mean? Like we're not talking like somebody that just got bitten by a fucking spider and was like, "Hey guys, I got a power." We're talking about somebody that came from hell and demons and
Okay, but you could also go like I just told you before about the whole Ghost Rider thing. Technically, he's from hell, if I'm not mistaken. They give him powers,
and I think if you go from that horror movie type look, and I know the '90s, like they had obviously movie making was a lot different.
Yep.
They couldn't really go that dark in the '90s, because if you did, it would scare the shit out of people, and they're like, no.
We can't do that, man.
Guys, that's too scary. We're going to scare kids.
And that's why kids shouldn't be watching it, but here we are.
But nowadays,
they don't give a fuck, apparently.
They don't really care. They're like,
make it
hey,
scary.
have you seen Saw? We scare the shit out of people all the time. We don't care.
Well, not even that. Look at every fucking horror movie that has been coming out of the last few years or so. I don't know.
But I think if they took it at that, and like, you really can make something that would be really worth seeing. Obviously, you have to look at, and we say for every freaking thing that we talk about, you have to look at the blueprint and you have to just follow the blueprint and not, make it something different.
Well, again, you have the fucking playbook, you have the Holy Grail, you have these things that you wonder why it's such a success in a sense, in that sense, where, if they did so well in the fucking TV show, they're like, oh, let's make a movie. Like, that's great. Then maybe you should have followed suit in the regards to this and made sure that the movie and in basically the TV show, even though it was animated, would have at least made sense. It could have been even a continuation of a story or something like that. Or they could have just done in this case, they probably just did the origin of Spawn and then, did whatever. But hopefully in the new one, I'm praying here, Matt, maybe you're right. Maybe they still do the horror thing and then, try to.
I mean, I would assume that it would be a lot better, but I'm looking at Mortal Kombat right now, and I know you don't like that movie at all.
Okay.
But just as a comparison, Mortal Kombat, kind of not the same movie, but you still have
the CGI
special effects that suck in that movie too. The tomato meter on that one's 47%, and the audience score is 57.
I'm okay. I was only surprised.
So,
because I understand if we're looking at both movies here, I get it. I'm just saying though.
Yeah.
CGI, of course, in the 90s. And it's funny how it's pretty sad that when you start looking at like Star Wars in like the 70s and 80s.
The animated show has a 96.
No, that's great. That's what I'm saying. Like if the fact that you're looking at a TV show that has done better than the movie, and then not only that, like when I was mentioning about Star Wars here, just for a quick second, the fact that even their special effects was 10 times greater than the shit that they were producing in the 90s with the CGI effects that they were doing. That's pretty fucking sad. That's just what I'm going to say. You're supposed to get better, not worse. That's where I was trying to get at with this whole thing, because like, you can't tell me that now an animated show literally has a 96 and basically the movie is just like, oh, well, here's a pile of shit. Here you go. That's wrong. Like you would think that maybe the movie would hopefully try to do better, like not going to be worse here.
Well, and I mean, the 96 is the audience score. They don't even have a critic's rating on that one. So, I mean, I obviously don't know what the critic rating would be on that one.
I mean, the critic rating could have been probably a little bit lower, but
for season 1, they do, and it's 89%, which
even
is
still, I would say most movies nowadays.
Unheard of.
There's very few movies that can get up there.
89% and then 96. I mean, I don't know of another animated show that's higher than that.
No, that's what I mean. Like, it's very rare that you find a show like that. And especially like even nowadays, I mean, you might find, show, I guarantee you, even though this was like 3 seasons, I wouldn't be surprised if, like, let's say they decide to do like a remake of this.
I almost wonder, seeing the year that this came out.
Yeah.
I almost wonder if they spent more time on the animated show
than the fucking movie
than they did on the movie.
Well, Todd was really the driving piece to this.
But they both came out in 97.
Even the show
and the movie.
Really? So then the question is I really feel like Todd had more control of the show than he did the movie. I think that's really what it is. I think he might have been a producer, might have asked some things. I think he did a lot of course, he did a hell of a lot more with that show than he did with the movie. That just
goes to show you when you have too much to do at the same time, you can't focus your efforts on more than one thing that you're doing. So
what he should have done is maybe done season 1 of that show, worked on the movie.
He should have worked on the movie and then finished the movie and then maybe delayed the show until maybe the next year or after whatever the movie came out.
But he could have maybe even done the season 1, did that, and then waited a bit, did the movie.
I mean, if you're
done that too, I don't know.
I think at the end of the day, if you're going to watch anything, watch the animated show.
Oh, I hands down would say watch the animated show. I mean, and again,
but don't watch it around your kids because there are boobs and there are weird sex scenes in there.
Let me put it this way. I would say like nowadays it'd be like watching Game of Thrones or fucking The Boys, for God's sakes. Just don't watch it around your kids.
It ain't as bad as The Boys, but I mean, there are scenes where they're walking around strip club and there's like women's boobs and, I mean, it's weird, but
look, use your best judgment. All right. If you have kids, just be smart. That's all I'm saying.
So I don't know if we really have time to get into the rest of this. I mean, most of the games I really haven't played, maybe except for Mortal Kombat, but
so yeah, I didn't realize that they had technically Spawn games, like 5 of them to be exact, which I thought was.
Yeah. I mean, I never had a PS2. I never had a Dreamcast.
I had a PS2, but I never played.
I never had a
Spawn.
PlayStation. Well, actually, I think I did have a PlayStation, but I don't think I've ever played Spawn Eternal. To be honest, but
didn't realize that they came out with a Spawn Game Boy Color version, which I found very interesting because I mean, I probably look like shit, but I don't know. I don't know if I'd ever play it.
It's even like you look at this, like in '95 they made a video game for the SNES.
Yeah.
And in '97 they made Spawn the Eternal. So you're talking a movie, a game, and the animated show all in the same year.
And that's my point. Like, you know, you can't. But the funny thing is like you see that they've only come out with 5 games. They never came out with anything else. The only thing that they've done is they would do like DLC characters. That's why with the new Mortal Kombat.
You know what would be fire would be an open world Spawn.
Oh, God. Here we go.
That would be fire, wouldn't it? I mean, that would be pretty
I mean,
awesome.
he could probably do it now, you know, with all the technology that's come out.
That'd be pretty awesome.
Problem is, though, it's going to be on the PS5 and not on the PS4. Knowing
that's true.
That's probably what's going to happen.
Your boy wouldn't be able to play it unless you get my book, which comes out on August 1st.
Or, ready? We start a GoFundMe account for Matt regarding a PS5.
Hey, you could just get my book and the money will go right back to me. So.
Yeah, right back to you, of course. And then, again, the future real quick. So all I could say is that hopefully with, you know, this movie that they're trying to come out with, great. Maybe it'll probably redeem some justice from back in the day.
It needs to be darker. Like that's the only thing that I would say. Like it needs to be darker. It needs to be like much darker than how the '97 movie was. Because if they don't make it darker and more like sinister, you can't do it the same way like you do Marvel and DC movies. You just can't do it in that same manner. Like you're talking Spawn, you just can't do it that way.
Well, and the reality is like, you know, with nowadays, sure, you know what? You want to scare the living shit out of people? Be my fucking guest. You know, you want to keep up that route with like going back to the 90, you know, TV show? Sure. Go right ahead. Be my guest. Actually, you know what? Fuck it. Why don't you make a fucking movie, which you're already doing, and then why don't you revitalize the show again? Why not fucking do it again? Because it's been
you can literally just cast characters and look at the show and be like, we want to do the same thing that the show is doing, just with people. You know, you have a blueprint literally from '97. You have 3 seasons of it. You can literally make it into the movie.
Or not. Well, yeah, I was just not even going to say that. You know what they could do if, because of like X-Men '97, they could just continue the show and then just do it that way. And then maybe give you instead of doing a cliffhanger, you know, there's just a thought, just throwing it out there, Todd McFarlane, if you ever want to know anything, but yeah, I mean, again, I think the character as a whole, I mean, it's an interesting, you know, I would say it's an interesting character, you know, with, of course, some unfortunate, like, tragic events that have been going on. I mean, that's kind of where you need to have that character. Like, you need to have something that's unfortunately sad. You know, you need to have that driving piece. Like, what is, and if you look at it, basically all superheroes are just like the comic theme is they need, what is their purpose? What is their thing that's going to drive the narrative of what they're doing, and how is it going to affect their life and their choices and all this other shit? Yeah. Is unfortunately, yeah, he got a pretty shitty deal and / he got a pretty shitty boss because, you know, he asked too many goddamn questions, and then, you know,
yeah, I mean, he
had to be like this. It's like
he came back for love, and you know, obviously he wants to protect his wife, which is not his wife anymore, but he wants to protect Wanda. So I mean, there's still that like kind of love angle where he still loves her and he wants to protect her. And then you have this other side that he definitely wants to atone for the sins that he did when he was alive. And so you have that balance between like, I want to be good, but I am evil.
Right.
And I still want to protect the ones that I love, but I'm going to have to do evil to protect them. And how do I go about being good, even though I want to do evil? So, I mean,
it kind of goes back and forth.
It's a very deep character, and it's a very good. So, if you've never seen anything with Spawn, I would start with the animated show. You really can't go wrong with it. I mean, if you really want to take your chances with the movie, I would say go for it. I mean, it's not a terrible movie, but definitely Violator, John Leguizamo's part in it is by far the best the best like performance in that movie is his.
So, and I will say this. I mean, like, you could. I know it's kind of stupid, but like, and like the only other appearances that he really ever does is like, in video games. So like, I played the Mortal Kombat kind of thing, and I've seen his DLC. It's honestly, it looks great. He looks amazing. It's pretty. I would say it's pretty spot on for the most part. It's not like it's like weird or different from what he actually looks like, but it's a different style. If you want to like see the like kind of like artwork or stuff like that, you can go right ahead and view him. But I think. Again, the character, if you have time to look at him, then, take a look at him. I mean, if you like the horror stuff, you like the, the tragic events that, any man basically on planet Earth would be like, yeah, well, I guess I'm just going to go see my wife again one last time and then become the basically general of the Hell's Army. If you like that kind of stuff, then go right ahead, but, we're not saying to just, view this character as, you should do it or you shouldn't do it. I mean, I just think, you guys get your own choice. And I think, as a whole, I think the character, I think he's probably someone that most people can relate, for the most part, if really at the end of the day, he's not your Superman, he's not your fucking Batman, but hell, put him in between, he's right in the fucking middle. And, you get some interesting characters that go along with the story as well. So, I think, for the most part, spawns an interesting character that, I think most people could get behind. But anyways, guys, I know we've talked too much about this shit, and trust me, we know because it's quite hot in this room right now. It's
very very hot. I'm liquidating right now.
He's melting like the Wicked Witch of the West here. Melting. But anyways, guys, no, we appreciate the hell out of you. Again, support us through sending us likes and supports. Sending it out to your best buds over and I don't know, fucking Ireland or wherever the fuck else you want to be at, like just send it everywhere, man. Like, again, help Matt support his book, man, because it's not only going to help him out, it's going to help us really with this podcast in general as well. And again,
it's a good read. So, it's not just helping me get money. It's actually a good read.
No,
so.
I wasn't just saying because of the money piece. I was more saying, yes, it is.
Give me your money.
Give me your money. No,
it's actually a good read. So, check it out. And definitely if you're into, Greek mythology and really geeky, nerdy kind of stuff, it's going to be right up your alley.
And no offense, maybe one day it'll be a movie, and hopefully we'll see. Who knows? But anyways, guys, again, follow us, share that like button, do all that fun stuff. But until next time,
stay geeky.